For more, let's bring in Ambassador John Bolton, former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations and former national security advisor in President Trump's first term. Great to have you here on this Friday night. President Trump has said Iran has 15 days. The last time he issued a 2-week ultimatum, he waited 2 days before he struck. What do you think he's going to do now?
Well, I don't really know, and I'm not worried about that because I don't think he knows either. I think he's been playing this out day by day. He does have several options. The option that he should pursue is to use this military campaign to help overthrow the regime of the Ayatollahs. That's what he has said this term is one of his objectives. That's different than what he did in the first term. But whether he'll go that far or not, I think is still very much an open question.
We know a lot of the allies in the Arab countries in the Middle East are arguing against it. They fear the instability regime change would bring.
Well, they're saying they don't want it because they don't want to offend Iran. They do want it. They just, it's like everybody else. They'd like to have their cake and eat it too. And if the regime does fall, they'll be happy about it. But it's really something that they have worried about themselves for a long time, precisely because of both the nuclear threat and Iran's support for terrorist groups like the Houthis in Yemen, which have attacked both oil infrastructure and major civil airports in the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia. So the Gulf Arab states in particular understand that Iran is a threat to them, which they'd like to see removed. They just like to do it without any complications, which I suppose all of us would like. But at the end of the day, they would welcome regime change in Iran.
It's hard to believe, Ambassador, that he's amassed all this military power there, all these fighter jets, all these carrier groups, and all to do nothing.
Well, I think he is going to use military force. He really has to vindicate the red line that he drew during the protests against Iran that were eventually suppressed with extraordinary brutality by the regime, killing by many estimates 30,000 people or more. And by not vindicating his red line so far, he's hurt his own credibility. So I do think there will be a military strike, at least to achieve that objective of making the red line something that people remember, unlike Obama, who drew a red line on chemical weapons in Syria and then backed away, tried to negotiate a solution to it, and it didn't work. But whether beyond that immediate need to vindicate the red line or not, I wouldn't take any bets on what he's going to do.
Yeah, it's just to remind our viewers, Trump drew this red line when the regime began killing protesters. He warned them that there would be hell to pay if they didn't stop killing the protesters. He said today Iran stopped a mass execution because of what he said, but the regime is still killing protesters. This week alone, security forces opened fire on a crowd of unarmed protesters.
I think it's very hard to know because obviously Western journalists are not able to go all across the country, which the opposition really is countrywide. But I think there's a decent case that the bulk of the people who were killed came after Trump's threats, and they certainly know that in Tehran.
You know, the Iranian playbook is to delay, string things out with negotiations and vague promises of a compromise while, you know, the regime hardens up its defenses and regains its strength. Is that, do you think, what's going on here? I mean, satellite images show them hardening nuclear facilities and mobilizing troops.
100%. These negotiations are a total waste of time. In 30 years of looking at the Iran nuclear weapons program, there has never been a single moment where there's been concrete evidence that the Ayatollahs have given up the objective of getting deliverable nuclear weapons. They're prepared to talk, they're prepared to deceive, they're prepared to get economic benefits to avoid being struck by military means, but there's no desire and no evidence that they've taken steps not to continue pursuing that objective. All they're doing here is playing for time, pure and simple.
Yeah, it's pretty clear to a lot of people that that's exactly what they're doing. You know, it's interesting. Even if they came with some proposal that was miraculously acceptable, for example, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says we can't trust them. We can't. We didn't like the last agreement, and basically what they're offering now is what they offered in the last agreement, which was hammered together under President Obama and which President Trump ripped up.
Right, which makes it even more problematic from Trump's point of view. If he accepts what is in effect the same as Obama's 2015 nuclear deal, he has to answer the question, why did he withdraw from it in 2018? In fact, the 2015 nuclear deal that Obama agreed to is a terrible deal. It really helped foster the Iranian nuclear weapons program. Whether or not you believe they violated, and I think they did, it was clear there's not adequate verification in that kind of deal. And the only verification that would make sense would be an enormous international presence all across Iran with complete access to all their nuclear scientists and technicians, which is something the regime will never agree to.
And when people wonder if this is in America's national security, it is worth reminding folks that Iran has been the #1 sponsor of terrorism on the West.
And its nuclear threat is very real, and it's in the near term to Israel and our Gulf Arab allies, but ultimately, since you can transport a nuclear device, you could bring it across our border and detonate it in a major American city. Their pursuit of nuclear weapons is ultimately more threatening even than their continued support for terrorism.
All right, Ambassador John Bolton, we shall see what President Trump decides. Unclear how long the holding pattern can continue and what the timeline might be. Really appreciate you coming on. Thanks. Have a great weekend.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.